the introduction part. Okay, very good afternoon to everyone. Uh, it's my privilege to welcome Ms. Guneet Kaur for today's webinar on Introduction to Financial Technology, FinTech. This is the part of the webinar series of LBF Campus, which we are running since last 2 months. And our today's speaker is Guneet Kaur, is a certified credit and securities analyst. She's MSc FinTech graduate with distinction marks from the University of Stirling, Scotland, United Kingdom. Prior to her MSc, she has also done MBA from GNTU, India with gold medal, and has worked as a global client and partner business manager with Singapore-based MNC. Presently, she is working as a research fellow at Digital Euro Association as a FinTech innovator in Innovation and Enterprise Hub, University of Stirling. Her expertise include financial modeling, quantitative analysis, academic research, business valuation, business analysis, data visualization, and AML analysis. She was the finalist of Women in STEM Lovelace Colloquium that was held in 2019 at the University of Salford, UK, and Royal Bank of Scotland's Hackathon in 2019. She has written various conference papers and has authored a book titled The Magic of Compounding. She believes that the most precious resource we have in this life is time, and one should make the most of it. She believes that sky is the limit. So, Ms. Guneet Kaur, we welcome you once again on the behalf of Academic Fraternity of LBF Campus. You can start your presentation now. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, sir, for the introduction. I'm very grateful to the LBF campus and to you to provide me with the opportunity to share my knowledge about the financial technologies. So, can you hear me?
Yes, please go ahead.
Um, so it's not possible to run through the screen when it's maximized. It's not allowing me to. Um,
Jasbir sir, is it?
yeah, so it's not allow. Yeah, it is not allowing me to share the other slides when it's maximized. It says it's restricted.
Okay, then you start your presentation. I think the content is still visible.
Yeah, so I can go for, yeah, yeah, sure. Okay, sir. So, starting with the today's agenda, so I'm going to share some of the background view about why we need the fintech. What were the loopholes in the previous or the traditional financial system, and what is financial technology? There are various perspectives on fintech, so I'm going to provide some overview of those perspectives and the growth of fintech, then how the existing banks or other financial institutions have responded to this new wave of evolution in financial services, then how it is disrupting the financial services, what are the technologies that contribute to the fintech, then what are its various applications. Then I'll share some examples of existing fintech services providers. Then I have also included some discussion on fintech and Bitcoin because what I have seen from my experience and from my knowledge that there is always a dilemma exist in the minds of people who hear fintech and they always correlate it with the Bitcoin. So I have included this discussion as well. Then some of the benefits and risks associated with fintech, then how it is helping to reduce the risk of COVID-19 spread. Then, just for the sake of the knowledge, for the audience today, mainly which are the students, like what are the fintech courses to begin with and what are the career opportunities in this field. So, starting with the background, the global financial crisis of 2008 to 9 has already exposed the failure of central banks around the world to properly regulate the financial system and properly and has portrayed the key weaknesses of the existing financial system, which is the centralization, which means that centralization of the banking system has challenged the public trust in the value chain of financial services. So I hope that everybody knows about the Lehman Brothers. So what happened with Lehman Brothers, which was a US based investment bank, in 2008, Lehman faced an unprecedented loss due to the continuing subprime mortgage crisis. So just for giving a short overview about subprime mortgage crisis, maybe some of you are aware or maybe it's a new term for most of you. So the subprime mortgage crisis occurred when banks sold too many mortgages to feed the demand for mortgage backed securities through the secondary market. So when home prices fell in 2006, it triggered losses for Lehman Brothers. The company failed basically due to the negligence of the regulator in identifying its large positions in subprime mortgages and low rated mortgage tranches when securitizing underlying mortgages. So as you can see on my screen, the firm declared $639 billion in assets and $613 billion in debts, making it the largest bankruptcy filing in US history. So there was a view prior to the global financial crisis that banks are too entrenched to be disrupted, which means that banks cannot be disrupted. So basically, if there are finance students in this webinar, so they must be aware that due to financial intermediation, the research has always proved that we need the banks. We need the banks so that they can regulate the existing financial system, so that they can provide finance to those in need from those who have the surplus money. We need banks to get immediate liquidity. So that was a viewpoint that banks are too entrenched to be disrupted. However, the reality is the current customer experience is outdated. Customers now expect their financial services to be mobile, customizable, personalized, and accessible. So, talking about we as a customer, we always want nowadays we want the banking services or the financial services. We want to use them at the comfort of our home. We want the services which are relevant to our needs. For example, we scroll through various products on the internet, and then we start using the advertisements on various other platforms we use, for example Instagram, Facebook, like some kind of advices that you can log in or sign up with that. So we want that kind of experience which which tracks our behavior and suggests us the advice accordingly. So, what is fintech? Fintech is a contraction of finance and technology. It is the use of technology in the financial services industry, resulting in the introduction of new and innovative products and services. It may refer to technical innovation applied in a traditional financial services context or innovative financial services offerings that disrupt the existing financial services market. So we have already seen in the previous slide that why it has emerged. It has emerged due to the outdated customer experience. We as a 21st century customer want a great customer experience. So it has emerged due to the technology. As we are aware that lots of data gets generated every day, so that data can be used to provide great and innovative financial services to the customers. Then because of the demographics, which is the shift in the rise of the millennials, like the people who are between the age 22 to 38 years, and then mobile financial services provide cheap banking financial services to the unbanked people. That is the people who are not still using the financial services. So the financial services can be made accessible for such people. Do you think it is something which is recently launched then? No. Fintech is not a new industry. It is just one that has evolved very quickly. Why it has evolved? Because of the power of technology, which has always been part of the financial world. Whether it is the introduction of credit cards in the 1950s, so world's first credit card was Diners Club, which was introduced in 1950s, or ATMs by Barclays Bank, electronic trading floors, personal finance apps, or high frequency trading in the decades that followed. So I hope that there is an idea in your mind that fintech is not new, and we can name some innovation in this field. So in India, basically the one of the best fintech innovation is the Paytm, the app by which you can manage your day-to-day transactions and other kind of financial services like payment, transfers, and deposits. Along with the basic overview of the fintech, there are various types of perspectives on fintech because fintech may be different for different kind of consumers. So first one is the fintech for dinosaurs. So from the word dinosaurs, there must be an idea in your mind that something like massive or large. So dinosaurs here refer to the large banks and the financial institutions. So, if we talk about the dinosaurs, we are all aware that the dinosaurs were already in the verge of extinction since 65 million years ago, and they simply didn't have enough time to adjust to the new environment by evolution. So, several trends that fuel the development of fintech have the potential to alter the business environment. For example, taking asset managers as an example, so they need to adjust according to the current trend. So what are the that what is that trend? That trend is because of client unhappiness. People are not happy with the current financial services, and they look forward for the services which can, provide them with the best financial services or the enhanced customer experience. And because of the emergence of technology, everybody wants to use the financial services at the convenience of their home through mobile devices or through their laptops. So financial managers or the asset managers now have the chance to embrace these trends and adapt to the changing environment. They can do so by team up with the existing fintech firms, or they can do some kind of strategic alliances or mergers and acquisitions. Yet it is important that asset managers evolve at a higher pace than before. Otherwise, the fate of the most asset managers is sealed, just as it was for the dinosaurs. So it is clear that if the large banks and the financial institutions do not adjust to the existing trend, the upcoming trend, they are going to be extinct just like the dinosaurs. So the firms which think like dinosaurs, they have to adjust according to the current environment. The next one is the fintech for entrepreneurs. So I have used COVID-19 as an example to explain this point. So what does fintech mean for the startup entrepreneurs or the innovators who wants to provide the enhanced financial services to the existing customers? So as we are all aware that amidst COVID-19 outbreak, many banks were forced to close several branches, which were the primary point of contact for a large proportion of customers. So, this is where fintech startups can fill the gap by traditional banking institutions by providing their solutions that require minimum human contact, thus complying with social distancing regulations while maintaining or increasing the convenience level for customers. So it is likely that many customers who began using fintech services out of necessity will continue to use them by choice. For example, if some of the customers who were not previously using mobile banking apps, they used to go to the traditional banks for deposits, transfers, or payments. And as COVID-19, due to COVID-19, we are not allowed to go anywhere outside, and they started using the mobile banking services. So now they will use those services by choice. Why? Because it is very convenient for them to use those services at the convenience of their home. They do not need to go to banks and stand in long lines to get their to get services from the banks. So basically, what are the types of services that entrepreneurs can provide? One is the digital payment services, and the other one is the digital investing. Although we will discuss the other services in the upcoming slides, so I've just added as an example that fintech entrepreneurs can provide digital payment services and digital investing services. Next is the fintech for investors. So this perspective belongs to the people who wants to invest in the fintech businesses. Previous one was those who have some kind of idea that they want to start a business which uses technology to provide financial services. Now this one is related to the investors who wants to invest in that kind of businesses. So fintech investment is a system of investing money or capital by utilizing financial technology, especially those which is based on some kind of digital platform. So as an example, there is a platform called Kickstarter. It is based in United States of America. So this is a funding platform for creative projects. So how does this platform works? Every project creator sets their project funding goal and deadline, which means that, for example, I have some project in my mind. What I need to do is I will go to the Kickstarter website and I will create one project with some kind of project description, my funding goal, which means how much funding I need, and the deadline for that funding. So those the investors or the people who are coming to that platform, they can pledge money if they like the project. They can pledge money to make it happen. Then how this platform makes money? If the project is successfully funded, Kickstarter applies a 5% fee to the funds collected. So backers plus creators is equal to awesome projects. This is the main business model of Kickstarter. So backers are the investors who back the investment, who back the startups of the creators. Creators are the entrepreneurs. So together they create the awesome projects. Next one is the fintech for customers. So I have already explained this. What does fintech means for customers? Taking examples, all of us as customers, as I've already explained, we want convenient financial services which are equally powerful, flexible, and innovative kind of financial services. For example, you went for a shopping and you don't want to carry physical cash with you. So there is a solution that you can pay through Google Pay, you can pay through Alipay, and various other platforms which are available these days. Similarly, if somebody is interested in investing in stocks or mutual funds, they do not want to call broker again and again to get some kind of financial assistance, or they do not want to go to brokerage houses, for example Sharekhan in India. They do not want to take any kind of services from them. Why? Because first of all, it's too much hassle in these processes, and secondly, because those services charge too much fee for their services. So there is a solution that such people who are traders or who want to invest for the long term, they can use the apps available these days to buy or sell their securities. Similarly, the people who live abroad, they can send money online in minutes through various platforms, just like TransferWire or Remitly. So such kind of platforms provide a provision by which users can send money to over 150 countries. Similarly, if I want to check my passbook to check the details of debit and credit, these days I do not need to go to the bank to get my passbook updated. Maybe just for the sake of proof, if I need it for somewhere, some legal purposes. Otherwise, I can check that through my banking app, or the whichever bank I'm using. I can go to that bank's app and check my passbook. Or even some of the banks provide a provision to download the passbooks from the banking app only. For example, HSBC Bank provides a provision by which customers can just download their passbooks, monthly passbooks. And next one is the growth of fintech, which is how fintech has grown. As we have already shared that this is not something new which has evolved, it is just the technology which has evolved over time. So, how it started? First of all, it started in 1866 when the first transatlantic cable was set up by United States of America. Then in 1918, US Federal Reserve Bank developed FedWire Fund Services, the first electronic fund transfer system in the world. Then in 1950s, credit cards were launched and the world's first credit card was Diners Club. After that, in 1967, Barclays Bank in London opened the world's first ATM machine. After that, in 1971, NASDAQ, which is the National Association of Securities Dealer Automated Quotations, which is an stock exchange based in US, it has started the electronic trading of securities and the initial public offerings by inventing an electronic trading floor. After that, in 1981, there was a platform named as Bloomberg. I'm sure many of you will be aware of the Bloomberg platform. It is a platform which provides real-time market data so that we can fetch that data from the Bloomberg database and do some kind of financial analysis on the debt or the securities. And after that, in 2008, Bitcoin was launched by Satoshi Nakamoto, which marks the beginning of fintech 3.0, a period. So talking about the previous ones, the era between 1866 and 1967 is called fintech 1.0, where although being strongly connected with technology, the financial services remain mostly analog. Then after, there was a switch from the analog to digital, which brings us the first ATM machine by Barclays in 1967, as I have already explained. And this period ended up after the global financial crisis of 2007, 8 to 9, uh, as the Satoshi Nakamoto developed a system. I will explain that in the upcoming slides, a blockchain based system which has exposed the inefficiencies of the global financial system, as I have already explained, and which left the global financial system on the brink of a systematic collapse. So it can be viewed as another evolution in the part of financial services. So now the question arises, how banks have responded to this kind of evolution or this kind of wave in financial services. So basically, I have already explained how dinosaurs what does a fintech for dinosaurs mean, and how they can make the most of this evolution. So uh, banks can either partner with the existing fintech firms or they can innovate on their own, because the banking system is huge and they are already established systems, so they have the power to innovate on their own. So one of the example in terms of innovating is the Goldman Sachs, which is the largest investment bank in the world. It has launched an online lending division by which lenders and borrowers can transact with each other through a digital platform, which means that they do not need to follow the previous or the conventional lending, all the services. by which they need to fill various kind of forms and takes various kind of approvals before getting their credit approved. These days credit can be approved online through the through the platforms by which lenders and borrowers can interact with each other. The other way banks have responded is they are partnering with the existing fintech firms to leverage on the power of technology. So one of the example is the JP Morgan, which has partnered with OnDeck to reach more small businesses. The next one is what is the fintech ecosystem, or what does fintech ecosystem consist of? So fintech ecosystem consists of various kind of services that fall under the fintech ecosystem. So these services include of platforms like payment and transfer platforms. They eliminate the barriers to cross-border payments. And these days,
Guneet
remittances.
ma'am,
Yes, sir.
your screen is not shared.
Um, okay, sir. Let me check. Sorry. Mm. So, can you see my screen?
Yes, ma'am. Now it is available. Now there is a question
Sir, can
also
you
there.
see
We
my?
can see that as an answer.
Sorry, sir. Can you please repeat?
Huh? I think somebody has asked a question also in QA. Can you just see there and answer that?
I think question
There is
answers
a
we can do
question
it
in
at
the.
the end of session. Question answer we can take at the end of session.
Yeah, yes, sir. That will be better.
Yeah. I think you complete your
Yeah.
presentation, then proceed with the question answer.
No. Yes, sir. Yes, that's fine. I was on the fintech ecosystem. So as my screen was not, you were not able to see my screen. So I'll just explain a bit more about it. So the fintech ecosystem consists of various kind of services that fall under the fintech ecosystem, which means that what kind of services basically falls under the financial services which are provided through technology. So first one is the payment and services. So taking mobile money as an example. So through the fintech ecosystem, fintech service providers can offer a system by which we can use our mobiles to transact with one another. So these kind of services are able to eliminate the barriers to cross border payments, and remittances these days are near instant, cheap, and as well as secure. Next one is the lending and financing. So this means that using technology for authentication and credit assessment, fintech services providers can provide these kind of financial services. Next one is the retail banking. So the platforms which allow users to deposit their money quickly, securely, these kind of services fall under the retail banking under fintech ecosystem. Then comes the financial management, which is related to the management of your securities, mutual funds, and the platforms which provide service with that kind of services, by which the investors can invest and the entrepreneurs can raise money. Those kind of platforms fall under the financial management services. Then comes the insurance, which means selling and managing insurance through technology And then there are various markets and exchanges throughout the world which can provide or which can regulate the existing fintech services. These are the, for example, the Bitcoin exchange. But there is a point to note that all of these exchanges are not regulated by the government. I'll explain that point a bit more in the upcoming slides. So what are the technologies? We have already, you have already listened more about, like I have been saying, that technologies behind the fintech. So now what are the technologies that contribute to the financial technology? First of all, it is the artificial intelligence and machine learning. So using algorithms powered by artificial intelligence and machine learning to train the computer systems which can provide real-time analysis. These kind of services can be made available to the users. Next one is the big data and data analytics. So data from customers and markets is of high value to fintech companies. Through large data sets, information about customer preferences, spending habits, and investment behavior can be extracted and used to develop predictive analytics. And predictive analytics means companies can analyze how consumers are behaving using the past information of the customers and the algorithms, and accordingly they can assist customers and provide them with the innovative financial services. Other one is the robotic process automation, which is RPA. So it is the process of assigning manual and repetitive tasks to robotics instead of humans in order to streamline workflows in the financial system. These kind of services are basically the applications or the services that can be provided through this technology. For example, the investment management. Other one is the blockchain. So blockchain is a distributed ledger technology which is capable of securely storing transaction records. Each transaction in a blockchain powered platform is encrypted, which means that chances of cyber attacks are relatively low. And this technology is also the backbone of various financial services or the cryptocurrencies. Now, what are the applications of financial technology? So, first one is the crowdfunding platforms. I have already explained about it in an example of Kickstarter. So, Kickstarter, as I've already explained, is a platform by which entrepreneurs can raise money for their projects. So, that kind of service is called as crowdfunding platform in a fintech uh, services. So these platforms allow entrepreneurs and early stage businesses to raise funds from all over the world, allowing them to bypass geographical boundaries and reach international markets and investors. Next one is the mobile payments. So mobile payment applications and gateways are one of the most prevalent uses of fintech. Such applications like Paytm allows users to carry out banking activities without physically visiting a bank. Other, other one, as I've already explained, which is powered by the robotic process automation, is the robo advisors, or it is also called as Investec, which means online investment management services that use algorithms to optimally allocate assets and generate portfolios for customers. So, talking about the conventional system of investment advising. So previously, how asset managers used to allocate the assets, they used to manually calculate and ascertain everything, determining the allocation of assets through, for example, Excel solver tool. They are using, or they are building financial models for this purpose. Nowadays, they can use the robo advisors to provide financial advice to the investors. Now, the other one is the InsurTech. The term InsurTech refers to the application of technology to the insurance model. So, InsurTech is insurance plus technology, which allows companies to provide tailored insurance services and data security. It helps the insurance process through online claims filing or policy management processes. The other one is the RegTech. RegTech is the regulation plus technology, which is called as RegTech. It focuses on the automation of compliance processes for financial institutions. The existing or the conventional compliance in the existing or the conventional compliance processes, we need to fill the various KYC forms, which is the know your client forms, and then those forms goes through various kind of stages for approval, and then we get our bank account or the debit card or the credit card. But through RegTech, services can be fast, cost effective through large amount of data, including transaction records, compliance documents, such as corporate tax returns. All these things can be done through online platforms. So the example of various fintech services providers. I have already given various examples, so just added few more to give a more overview of it. First one is the Circle. It is also a crowdsourcing platform, just like Kickstarter. It is based in UK, London. So it provides peer-to-peer, means person to it can be B2B or B2C marketplace lending platform, lending to individuals or businesses through online services that match lenders directly with borrowers is the services provided by this platform, and the operation of lending platform may be regulated through this platform. Then the other one is the PayPal. So PayPal provides online payment accounts. We can make we can send money through this platform. We can receive money through this platform globally from any country in the world. And the other one is the Paytm, which is India-based mobile payment solution provider. So it offers full stack payments and financial solution to customers as well as on offline merchants and other online platforms. If you want to pay through Amazon, you can use Paytm or any other platforms. We can make payments through Paytm. So I hope that you can recognize the following picture. So of course, we are aware that it is Bitcoin. So it is a kind of cryptocurrency which was invented in 2008 by the anonymous, which is known by the name Satoshi Nakamoto. So during the beginning, I have explained that from my expertise or from my knowledge or the experience, I have always realized that people always relate fintech with Bitcoin. Every Some of the time at one point of time I was attending one conference. It was held by World Blockchain Forum in Dubai, and one of the person over there, I asked him some questions about fintech, and he said, yeah, yeah, I know fintech is Bitcoin. So that's why I want to explain this about this thing a bit more, that fintech does not mean Bitcoin. So what is Bitcoin and what is fintech? These slides will cover. Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies like Ethereum or Facebook's Libra are digital currencies that are not issued or regulated by a central authority, such as the central bank or any government of any country. So what does fintech means in a Bitcoin fashion? It is a sector or an industry that regroups a collection of businesses, startups, and applications. However, crypto is a discipline, science, philosophy, or a community. Therefore, it does not mean Bitcoin. So what is it? It is an electronic financial framework providing features that mimic an actual currency system with its own system of money creation and exchange. It is powered by a crypto technology that can be used to disrupt finance. Bitcoin is a number. Yes, it is simply a number. For example, ABC123. That's it. So I will just explain it through an example. What does mean Bitcoin is a number? So to illustrate, I've randomly put some hypothetical example. So for example, I pull a rupees 1 bill from my wallet, which bears number G6607081994P. Assuming some minimum level of competency by the Reserve Bank of India, no other bill bears that number, which means that each bill number is unique, so that this bill that I have pulled up from my wallet, which has a face value of rupees 1, it means you can buy anything with that rupees 1, which means if I spend that one money, at least I can buy one melody out of it. So now considers, how about two people agreeing that the bill number G66 and so on is actually worth rupees 25,07,149 something. So Bitcoins, this is the Bitcoin's value as on yesterday, 30th Jan 2021. So the only difference between Bitcoin number ABC123 and rupees 1 bill number G66 and so on is that at the end of the day, the bill rupees 1 physically exists and it has a face value that is worth something. By contrast, Bitcoin has no intrinsic value. It is just a number. Yes, it is just a number that has an agreed value between two parties, but the number itself does not have any value. So, considering this in mind, there is always a question I have always came across through conferences and seminars, and it is also a the hot topic for research, that can Bitcoin or cryptocurrencies be a currency of the future? Among all digital currencies, Bitcoin has received a great deal of attention. By acting as a quasi-bank account, cryptocurrencies can help to increase financial inclusion in developing countries, since anyone with internet access can download a Bitcoin wallet. So, as we are aware that there are three basic features by which can satisfy that something can be related to money. So these features are, first one is the medium of exchange, which means that you can use the money to buy or sell something, some goods or services. Next one is the unit of account, which means that the money can be used for comparing the value of goods and services. And the next one is store of value, which means that if you store the money, it keeps value until it is stored. So, Bitcoin as a currency of the future, we need to see what features of the money that Bitcoin satisfies. So, Bitcoin is obviously and clearly it's a medium of exchange, as it can be used to determine value during exchange of goods and services. However, it does not perform well as a unit of account and a store of value. Why? It is because Bitcoin is 10 times more volatile than fiat currencies. Therefore, it is impossible to use Bitcoin as a hedging tool. I'll explain about the Bitcoin volatility in the upcoming slides. Similarly, Bitcoins cannot be deposited in the bank accounts like the existing money, which makes them vulnerable to hackers. Furthermore, in contrast to conventional currencies, Bitcoin does not have an interest rate function. It is because cryptocurrencies are unregulated and interest rates are always given by central banks. So the interest rates cannot be derived based on the Bitcoin or other cryptocurrencies. So the extent of volatility and the risk of fraud is high in the case of cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin. So talking about the Bitcoin volatility, the Bitcoin volatility index is the volatility index for Bitcoin. Just like the traditional or existing securities, volatility is provided by CBOE exchange, which is the Chicago Board Options Exchange. So, if as you can see on the screen, the graph number one, which says one day, this is the 29th January, 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., and then 30th January, uh, Bitcoin volatility. So, if you are able to see my screen clearly, you can see that on 29th January, 6 a.m., the price of the Bitcoin was approximately 32.5K, and it shoot up like after 12th p.m. it shoot up to 38K. So it is highly and highly volatile as compared to the other currencies. Taking example, if you track the currencies daily, I do. So I am aware that if I compare the British pound and the INR, the British pound always, you know how it is declining or upsurging. It is just by points, point 1, point 2, sometimes it is 99.98, sometimes it is 100.06. So it is going up and down only in points. In the financial systems we call those points as pips, which is called as percentage in points. So the existing currency is declining and upsurging in pip system. However, Bitcoin is highly volatile. As you can see from the 1 day graph or the 30 days graphs, it is going up and down more than 10K in hours or in a day or in a month. Now, the question arises, why it is so volatile? What are the reasons behind the Bitcoin's volatility? First of all, the first reason is Bitcoin has no fundamental price to fall back upon. So, if you are aware about Lehman Brothers, as I've already explained, that it has filed bankruptcy. Despite of this reason, its stock was not reached to zero during the financial crisis. So it means that there is a problem with buying a Bitcoin, is that it doesn't generate a return. It is just simply an internet token that is used as an alternative to transfer money between its users and for which they have to pay fee with each transaction. So it doesn't have any fundamentals. So where is the fundamental flaw in Bitcoin's value lies? As I've just explained, it is just a number, and numbers are infinite. There is no end to the number. There will, it means that there will never be a shortage of numbers. Also, Bitcoin is already capitalized. That means that until the crypto asset generators, they or the miners, they do not reach the 21 million numbers, they can generate cryptocurrencies. Despite of this thing that Bitcoin is limited to 21 million numbers, it does not mean that somebody else cannot come up with a similar algorithm and thereby create their own set of unique numbers, that is their own cryptocurrencies. As per Wikipedia, there is no other source, but it is only mentioned in Wikipedia that there are around some 3,196 cryptocurrencies in the world, which means that this notion that Bitcoin has no fundamental price is true. The other reason is there is rampant market manipulation in cryptocurrency. That is due to the lack of regulation for cryptocurrencies. The bad actors can manipulate the price of cryptocurrencies and then cash out rich long before the rest of the investors catch on. The another reason is the risk of fraud in cryptocurrencies. Any asset that doesn't have a fundamental price logically is a target for scam artists. I have seen, like from my daily experience, because of some of my global contacts, I have to use Telegram. And every day, if you are a Telegram user, or maybe some of the Facebook groups where people are posting about, for example, the upcoming trends or the things, the people are, commenting about some Bitcoin things, long text, or in Telegram also. That is the kind of fraud I am referring here, like too many scams on Bitcoin. The other one is the Bitcoin is the purest speculation. That is why it is highly volatile. It is simply the purest speculation. Since Bitcoin itself doesn't do anything to generate additional income like bonds, we have to pay interest, and the stocks which pay dividends. So, in short, both holders and the desperate have the same thing in common, which is they just have a bullish tunnel vision that Bitcoin will return to its prior heights. So, there is nothing about fundamental price analysis. It is simply a prayer. Yeah, it's simply a prayer that yeah, the Bitcoin will came back to the previous high prices. So the other thing, along with the volatility, what is the another issue with the Bitcoin is the money laundering risk posed by the cryptocurrencies. So, since a cryptocurrency is not a fiat currency, Bitcoin is not subject to the legal provisions of anti money laundering regulations in any jurisdiction. For example, in the UK, all the banks or the financial systems, financial institutions, which are in the businesses of providing financial services to the customers, they have to follow the AML provisions by the Financial Conduct Authority, which is FCA in the UK. So the cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin pose many with money laundering risks, such as first one is the risk of placement, which means anyone can transfer such kind of receipts to a foreign country because they are not regulated. Other one is the layering, risk of layering, which means that the proceeds through Bitcoin are real-time criminal proceeds. That's why they are uncontrollable. I have earned something through Bitcoin, I can immediately transfer to someone in other country. That is the layering. Other one, last one is the risk of integration. That is, we can withdraw or the miners can withdraw criminal proceeds from Bitcoin in a foreign country, earned in a different country. There is an example about the largest Bitcoin fraud in history. That is that happened in 2013. Satoshi Dice. It was an online gambling platform, so it accounted for over half of all Bitcoin transactions. The Tokyo-based Mt. Gox, one of the world's largest Bitcoin exchanges, it used to handle 70 to 85% of all Bitcoin transactions in 2013. So it was revealed in April 2014 that approximately 7 lakh 50,000 Bitcoin transactions, which were worth $450 million in USD, belonging to customers, were missing and stolen. Why? Because nobody was regulating that stock exchange. Miners were coming, generating Bitcoins. They were doing like placing it in a different country. They were layering them through because they are uncontrolled, the Bitcoin transactions are uncontrollable, or it involves the risk of integration. I know that most of you have a question in mind. Then, is Bitcoin a scam? No, Bitcoin itself is not a scam, but how Bitcoin is being sold is a totally scam. Scammers are intentionally pumping the value of Bitcoin much higher than it deserves to be. So I have already explained that Bitcoin is just a number which the parties who are in a Bitcoin platform, or you can say that the blockchain platform, whatever number or whatever worth they agree, they just mention that as the value of the Bitcoin. That is why Bitcoin goes against the fundamental rule of investing, which is buy low and sell high. Bitcoin is already high and astronomically high value compared to its true value. There is an old investment saying which says that the quickest way to lose money is to invest in something which is already whole. So idea here is that folks who are going to profit from Bitcoin transactions have already earned it and are now just looking for pigs to slaughter them. So I have just correlate this notion with the another investment saying which says bulls make money, bears make money, but pigs get slaughtered. That is the people who feel that stock market is going to rise, they make money. The ones who feel that but the stock market is going to decline, they also make money. But the ones who are too greedy about it, they get slaughtered. This is what miners or the Bitcoin, the people involved in the Bitcoin transactions are doing to the people. Now coming back to Satoshi Nakamoto's vision, Bitcoin and the use of Bitcoin as a currency of the future. Bitcoin was designed as a decentralized peer-to-peer payment system, and thus it is just a medium of exchange. It does not provide a store of value or a unit of value. You can say in the picture that two people are arguing. The person in the left side is arguing that it is a store of value, but the on the right hand side is saying, do you remember Satoshi's vision? It's just a medium of exchange. So, based on the discussion or the overview that I have provided, so what are the benefits of and risk associated with this technology or the financial services? The first one is the privacy, which means that users have their own privacy. They do not need to share their own things with the other users involved in the network. They can keep the information to themselves, which means that there is transparency of transactions to them. Nobody can defraud them through a fintech platform because they can see that what's going on. It is not like what happened during the global financial crisis, that the people who were investing in pension funds, they were not at all aware that what Lehman Brothers, JP Morgan, or the other largest financial banks are doing. Also, also the services provided through such platforms are cheaper, as well as we can get our resolution in a faster or a quick way. Also, they provide advanced security. How and why? Because I have explained that such kind of platforms use encryption, and through encryption, the chances of cyber attack are quite low. The other benefit that these platforms provide that I mostly like is the financial inclusion. In 2019, I have participated in the Royal Bank of Scotland hackathon in the UK. So the theme of the hackathon was how we can resolve the financial exclusion problem in the United Kingdom. There are over 5 million people in the UK which are unbanked. So I decided, yes, I was based in UK, so I worked in that area only, but I decided to compare the financial exclusion problem in UK as well as in the India. Then I decided to write a book on magic of compounding. You can check that book. And I have found that India, whether it's India or whether it's UK, means developing country or a developed country, the problem is the same. In India also, the pension savings deficit is expected to cross USD 85 trillion by 2050, as compared to 224 trillion in UK, which means that people are not able to access financial services, or they do not want to access financial services. There are various barriers associated with it. First one that I found was the financial illiteracy. People are not aware of the most of the financial terms, what does those mean, and what are the benefits associated with them. Other one is the system complexities. Financial systems are very complex. I can give you my own example. Like when I moved to UK in 2018, I had to open my bank account in UK being a student. It took me more than 1 month to open my bank account in the UK in the HSBC Bank. There were many formalities and the requirements. I need too many letters for that to open a bank account. So the benefit that fintech services provide here through by providing financial inclusion is that you do not need to go through those kind of cumbersome or the system complexities to get access to the financial services. You can download an app and sign up, and you can do your transactions. However, along with the benefits, There are many risks associated with the fintech. I have recently explained the money laundering risk. Terrorist financing is one of the money laundering risk only, that the illegal proceeds can be transferred to the terrorist through such platforms, because most of them are not regulated. That's why crime is on high. Lack of government intervention is also very low. That's why some of the people do not even trust in those kind of services, and customers are least protected through such platforms. And even if there is a technology failures, these services can be disrupted, and the operational resilience of the system can be hampered. Yeah, so after the benefits and the risk, how fintech institutions are meeting the COVID 19 challenge. So, I have already explained through my example when I explained fintech for entrepreneurs. So, this is something which is correlated, just the different points, uh, despite of that explanation. So, what is the due to the COVID 19, nobody is allowed to go outside, and most of the banks also closed their branches. So it created issues for the people who were not previously using the online banking services. So fintech here helps in achieving financial inclusion without any physical contact, which means that everybody can access the financial services without any physical contact. Then it ensures continuity of financial activities. It aims to provide financial stability. Fintech aims to deliver efficient and secured financial services. And digital services provided through the fintech platforms helps in reducing the spread of COVID-19 disease. So after this much of explanation, if fintech sounds interesting to you, you can do some of the courses to begin with. There are many platforms which provide courses for free, like Coursera, EDX. You can go for their free trial. Or if you have your student email like abc@lbef.com, or with associated with your organization, you can sign up for the free version of Coursera. And there is another option by which you can apply for financial aid through the Coursera platform. I think it took 12 to 13 days to get it approved so that you can do your courses. So these are some of my do from Coursera, EDX, or Data Camp. Yeah, Data Camp is one of the very interesting and resourceful platform. You can learn about the, if you are technology oriented person, you can learn about the recent technologies like the Python language and how we can use the Python for finance through this platform. Now, I'm sure that everybody will be interested to know about the career opportunities in this area. So, fintech is finance and tech. So, two industries are basically involved in this field. In a finance industry, one can opt for financial being a financial manager, financial analyst, compliance expert, business analyst, account executive, securities analyst, credit analyst, or risk manager. So yes, for these kind of skills, you need to have some kind of knowledge which is accepted globally. So so you can do certifications like chartered financial analyst, which is CFA, or the ones which are provided by Corporate Finance Institute Canada. These are CBCA, CMSA, or FMVA. The other industry, which is the tech industry, one can be a data scientist, data analyst, apps developer, blockchain developer, project manager, software engineer, or a cybersecurity analyst. After discussing this much, it's a time to check the knowledge. Unfortunately, the I'm not able to share the screen with when have maximized my screen, so I have to go it like this only. So, for example, a company A raises small amounts of money from a large number of people, you can identify the application of fintech, that is the crowdfunding, so that people can raise money through this platform. Next one is the suppose that ABC Bank identifies that in April 2021, the number of customers going to default on loans will be 20K. Name the technology that was utilized to predict this. With this question, you can see that the bank is predicting something. So, as I have explained, the technologies that can be used are AI, which is artificial intelligence, Dash does away with the need for clearing houses by replacing the trusted third party function of the clearinghouse with the trusted distributed data store. When I explain blockchain technology, I have explained decentralized technology which does not involve the interference of third parties. So, here, while settlement of securities, the existing process is that the securities need to be cleared through clearing houses, and it always took t plus 2, which is trading plus 2 days, to get the securities settled to the buyers and the sellers. But this technology does not need clearing houses intermediation. That is why the answer is blockchain technology. Next one is the illicit trade in commodities is an example of dash risk present to the use of fintech, which is money laundering. As I have explained that the illegal trade can be done through fintech. Next one is the Mrs. X just moved from Singapore. She has a study permit, but it will take her 2 weeks to arrive. Instead of having to book an appointment and wait for a few days before she can be onboarded to a traditional bank, she could use the fintech platform to start making transactions. What is the benefit provided by the fintech in this scenario? I have explained that through my own example as well. When somebody move from one country to another, they need some kind of documentation to access the financial services. However, with the advent of technology, the one can be financially included through fintech platforms. Bitcoin is capped at, currently I've explained that the supply of Bitcoin is capped at 21 million. Next one is, which feature of money does Bitcoin satisfies pursuant to the use of Bitcoin as a currency? So yeah, that is the medium of exchange, as I have explained. The next question is, Mr. X buys a futures contract in Bitcoin to hedge the currency risk. Will he be successful with this strategy? Why or why not? Mr. X will not be successful with his strategy because Bitcoin cannot be used for hedging purpose, as I have explained, because it cannot be used as a store of value or a unit of account. Next one, HSBC Bank partnered with FinTech Identity to create digital account receivable that identify the perspective on FinTech. In this example, the perspective is FinTech for dinosaurs. Why? Because HSBC, being the one of the largest bank, is using the acquisition or strategic alliances to provide financial services powered by technology to the customers. The last one, Bitcoin has no intrinsic value. Then what gives Bitcoin a value? I have explained that there is no intrinsic value, no fundamental value attached to Bitcoin. So what is the thing that is driving the value of Bitcoin? The Bitcoin's value is derived by the people who are in the blockchain network. That is the people who are backing it, and it is based on the supply and demand. So with this one, I'll conclude my presentation. If you have any questions or queries, you can ask, or if you have any query after the presentation, after the webinar, you can note my credentials and you can contact me over LinkedIn, through my email or my Instagram page. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Guneet. There was a question, somebody has asked that question. This is, I think it was in continuity with the thing here. He's asked, can you suggest any banks in India and Nepal?
Sorry, sir. I'm not able to hear you properly about the question thing.
Can you,
It's something continuity.
there is a question, I think he has asked that question when you were, I think, talking about certain banks thing there. This is, can you suggest any banks in India and Nepal?
Sir, is it okay if you can add that question to the chat because your voice is very echoing? It's not clear. What is it?
Okay, ma'am, can you open the Q&A section? The question is there.
Sure, sir. Sir, it says zero questions.
No question. There is one open question there. Okay, I'll just
I
stop.
can see
Okay.
zero on my screen. Wait, I'll share my screen with you.
I'm just sharing it. Just see this. Guneet, I've sent you the question in chat. Just check that out.
Yes, sir. Can you suggest any banks in India and Nepal? I mean, sir, the question is not clear. Of in what sense they
I
are
think
saying banks in India and Nepal?
that's what I was talking about. The thing is that he wanted to ask you this question when you were talking about something about some slide. He has asked this question about nearly about 30-40 minutes ago when you were talking about banks, I suppose.
I think he wants to know like if some banks in India or Nepal are providing the
Okay.
fintech services. Then I think in India almost all of the banks are providing fintech services. As now taking example as a um, Canara Bank. Canara Bank has recently started innovating and is providing services through financial through online apps only. It has separate apps for basic banking like depositing, payment, and other services, and the different app for accessing the passbook. And talking about Nepal, as far as I am aware, there is one bank, uh, not a bank, it's the company. The name of the company is F1 Soft Private Limited. It is one of the leading fintech company, and it is partnering with the existing banks in Nepal to providing financial services across the country.
Right. Niranjan wants to ask you some question. Niranjan, you can speak now.
Hello. Uh, can you hear me, sir?
Hello.
Yeah. Okay, ma'am.
Yes.
Yes. You see, the question uh, asking was me. It was me, and I think I got my answer, ma'am. I think I got my answer. The company
Okay,
was
sir.
F1,
Okay,
no?
sir.
Not ma'am?
Okay. Yes, sir. It's F1 Soft Private Limited. It is one of the leading, I have read about it few days ago. It is one of the leading fintech company providing transactional banking services to the banks and financial institutions in Nepal. It is also recognized for introducing mobile banking and services in the country.
Okay, ma'am. Can you drop any link if you have in question answer?
Um, Sir, you can right now. Okay, I'll just tell F1 Soft Private Limited. Yes, sir. I have dropped the link to the chat section. So it is this company.
Yes, okay, thank you, ma'am.
Okay, sir. No problem. Any other question or queries?
Uh, Anybody else has any questions or queries? All right, I think nobody has any questions. So let me just sum it up, right? We'll end the session now. I'll like to thank
Okay, sir.
Ms. Guneet, right, on behalf of LBF campus for giving her precious time to us for introducing our participants to the fintech, right? Thank you, Guneet, and I hope if in future we require your time, you'll be able to give it to us.
Yes, sir, for sure, I'll be available. And if any student wants this presentation or any other help, if they want to know about fintech in India or abroad, or they need any help in doing courses through Coursera, I can help them.
Right. And I'll be, this was live on Facebook, right? You can always go to the LBF page and find it out. And otherwise, and I'll be uploading it on YouTube also. Once the recording is done, I'll upload it on YouTube. You can always go there.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir, no issues.
Right, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. With this,
Yeah, thank you so much, sir.
right. Thank you, ma'am. We'll end this session today. So I'll
Okay,
just
sir.
thank you.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Welcome, ma'am.